Hi everyone, welcome to week 9. Before I get into materials on social wellness and emotional wellness, I thought you might enjoy hearing about what some of the other earliest memories were from your classmates. So for many of you it was tied to something out of the ordinary, being hissed at by a possum, seeing newborn sheep, being hit in the head by a skateboard, bit by a dog, learning to bat, catching a fish, the day a sibling was born, and birthday parties. Some of you shared some more general experiences, like remembering swimming, eating ice cream, being at grandma's house, being at daycare, or starting preschool. A couple of you mentioned whether what you remember is because of stories you've been told or pictures that you've been shown, rather than being a spontaneous memory. And interestingly, the ages of first memory span quite a few years, everywhere from like 2 years old all the way through third grade. I had mentioned that my earliest memory was calling my grandma, who I was very close to. And a few years ago, my husband's grandparents had an old rotary phone as decoration in their basement, and I was able to just dial my grandma's number, even though it hasn't been in use for more than 20 years. And I would say that's an example of muscle memory at work. Several of you are looking forward to different creative endeavors. I think a lot of you are realizing that creativity is something that can be developed and boosted and something that you can look forward to across your lifespan. Some of your reflections are sewing, learning new languages, including sign language, painting, drawing, coloring, knitting, crocheting, weaving, writing, journaling, sculpting, and pottery, cake decorating, gardening. Several of you mentioned music, piano and guitar and other new instruments, as well as singing, and being physically active, yoga, dancing, new sports or activities, or riding horses. So I do continue to enjoy and appreciate all of your responses on your discussion boards and on Edpuzzle, and it is a lot of fun to learn more about all of you and watch you explore and make meaning from the materials that we're exploring this semester. So I'm going to talk about social and emotional wellness together. Social wellness being developing a sense of connection, belonging, and a well-developed support system. Emotional is coping effectively with life and creating satisfying relationships. These are very complementary forms of wellness, but distinct. And as you'll continue to see through the rest of the semester, all of the wellness areas are very complementary. I want you to go to our class page on Edpuzzle and watch a video if physical health problems were treated like mental health problems, and then come back to this video. I'm not going to focus on mental illness explicitly this week, but it is important to make the connection between mental and emotional health. And it's also worth drawing attention back to the materials about ACEs, which indicated that early traumatic experiences can have lifelong impacts on our abilities to regulate emotions, make lasting connections, etc. So this is just one of the examples how people with higher ACE scores can see impacts in wellness areas as adults. So social and emotional wellness are mechanisms through which ACEs can continue to impact our aging experience. And that's true of other areas of wellness as well. So I'd like you to go find the worksheet on depression. That's in our week 9 content folder on Blackboard, and then come back here to answer a couple of questions. The assigned reading material, this would be where I'm going to ask you a couple questions about the excerpts from Adulthood and Aging for week 9. And then I'm going to continue on to social wellness. Social wellness is developing a sense of connection, belonging, and a well-developed support system, as I mentioned. The ability to have satisfying relationships, receiving and giving support to family and friends, enhancing diversity and becoming active in issues that you care about. So ideas related to social wellness include interacting with people of other cultures, backgrounds, and beliefs, cultivating healthy relationships, sharing your talents and skills, contributing to your community, and communicating your thoughts, ideas, and feelings. There is a association between social support and cognition. So this is a graph showing cognitive decline over 12 years among older men, and it's looking at degrees of social engagement. So the percent cognitive decline goes from 0 up to 60%, and those with 5 to 6 ties, so a pretty good number of social ties, being pretty socially engaged, they experienced over a course of 12 years about 20.5% cognitive decline. But as you get down to people with no social ties, they experience 51% cognitive decline. So just an example of how these things are interrelated and mutually supportive. I'd like you to watch the video Socialize Your Way to Better Brain Health, and then come back to this video. Relationships provide for basic needs, for learning, for emotional support. When we experience rejection, social rejection, it actually activates a part of our brain that is associated with physical pain. So social isolation can actually be damaging, and it's been found to be comparable in magnitude to smoking on your health. The Harvard study of adult development has been a really important longitudinal study. Dr. Waldinger tracked the lives of 724 men over the course of 75 years, and he asked them about their work, their home lives, health, how their life stories were going to turn out. And he found 3 main lessons over the course of these men's 75 years. Social connections are really good for us, and loneliness kills. By the way, Professor Waldinger wasn't the one who was able to do all the analysis over the course of 75 years, but he was the one to begin this study, which is really extraordinary. Turns out that people who are more socially connected to family, friends, community, they're happier, physically healthier, they live longer than people who are less well connected, and the experience of loneliness turns out to be toxic. People who are more isolated than they want to be from others find that they are less happy, their health declines earlier in midlife, their brain functioning declines sooner, and they live shorter lives than people who are not lonely. Now, that word loneliness is important because you see here it says people who are more isolated than they want to be. Some people are more extroverted and others are more introverted, and it doesn't mean that if you're an introvert that you are necessarily isolated from people or that you are lonely, but people are going to have different levels of what they feel is adequate social interaction. It's the quality of your close relationships that matter. So it's not how many friends you have. It's not whether or not you're in a committed relationship. It's the quality of your close relationships. So it turns out that living in the midst of conflict is really bad for our health. High conflict marriages, for example, without much affection, turn out to be very bad for our health, perhaps worse than getting divorced. And living in the midst of good, warm relationships is protective. Now keep in mind, this is part of what is being captured with the adverse childhood experience related to parents being separated or divorced, which is the idea that it's representing discord in the home leading up to the divorce, as well as the loss of the other parent in the home. And the third lesson, good relationships protect our brains. They don't just protect our bodies. Turns out that being in a securely attached relationship to another person in your 80s is protective. That the people who are in relationships where they really feel they can count on the other person in times of need, those people's memories stay sharper longer. And I do give a link here if you'd like to learn more about this study and view a video, a TED Talk. Okay, now I'd like you to go to the worksheet looking at family strengths from the Blackboard content folder, and then have you answer a question. We'll continue. So looking at social networks or convoys, this is basically the affiliation of people that surround a central person. So from your perspective, you would be the person in the center. If you look at the next concentric circle around you. It would be people you feel so close to that it's hard to imagine life without them. And then the next circle is people you feel close to but are still important to you. They're less close to you, but they're still important to you. And then lastly, people that you maybe haven't mentioned already, but they're important enough in your life that they should be placed in your personal network. So I'm going to have you draw your own social convoy diagram. So I want you to take a blank piece of paper, draw 4 concentric circles, and complete a social convoy diagram for yourself. So you can refer back to this previous slide. I'll show it to you again. So people you feel so close to it's hard to imagine life without them, people you feel less close to but they're still important to you, and people whom you haven't mentioned that are important enough that they should still be in your personal network, but they're in that sort of last concentric circle. And then I'll have you answer a question here on Edpuzzle. And now I'd like you to go and complete the worksheet on Blackboard on social support. So if you look at the composition of a social convoy, kind of on average, people have between 5 to 10 close relationships. Family members are usually very dominant in that very close concentric circle. And for people who are not married or don't have children, friends and siblings are more prominent. And women and younger people do tend to have larger networks. It can be interesting to think about the types of social exchanges happening between people in a social convoy. So you can think of it in terms of aid, which would be tangible. So for example, offering money or offering care for somebody when they're sick, or also intangible, offering information or advice. Affect, which would be offering emotional support. That kind of emotional support that you reserve for very close relationships, that love and care of a significant other. But it can also be less intense affect, like the fondness and affection for a close friend. And the third type of social exchange is affirmation, which is more intangible communication, that you share or respect one another, you have the same values and goals and aspirations. And keep in mind that not all social exchanges in a social convoy are positive. It can often happen, especially with our family members, that sometimes our interactions are negative, and that can lead to stress and be a potential issue for us. This is just kind of a neat idea. Playgrounds for seniors are gaining popularity in America. In addition to promoting physical health, the parks provide mental and social benefits to visitors. The senior playgrounds can serve as social gathering spaces within the community and help to combat feelings of isolation and loneliness among older generations. So there's kind of creative community level solutions to issues like social wellness, and it also benefits physical wellness and mental wellness. I'd like you to watch the video Present Perfect and come back to answer a question or finish the video. I thought this was pretty cute. At every age, a happy life is made up of little things. So this will conclude our lecture on social wellness.